Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday. Welcome to my channel. My name is Dawn, and this channel is Dawn Does Keto. This channel is all about my accountability and my journey on the ketogenic diet. Stop.
Did you say it was Tuesday?
Isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just asking. It feels like it's Monday again.
No, it's Tuesday.
It feels like Monday because
I look a hot mess because
we both feel and look a hot mess.
So I recorded my video yesterday. I don't even know if I finished my introduction, but this channel is all about my accountability on the ketogenic diet. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Mike and I do Dinner with Dawn.
And Mike.
Yeah. And we are reading the book, The Case Against Sugar by Gary Taubes, and doing like a little bit of a book discussion about it while we have dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, yesterday I recorded my video. I felt fine all day, but as the day went on, my sinuses started breaking loose and I just didn't feel good as the day went on. And then last night I couldn't breathe out of my nose. So all night long, you know, I'm like mouth breathing and, you know, made my throat like sore and everything. So
now we didn't do any smooching yesterday because she didn't feel good, but now I also have a scratchy sore throat.
I just really think it's allergies because he was sneezing yesterday. I just had like the drainage, and I showed you guys the weather. The weather change has been really crazy back and forth here, so I think that that's it. But I'm just going to show you guys real quick. This is what we're having for dinner. We are having barbecued chicken, and then you guys saw in another video where I tried to make the halloumi cheese fries and they fell apart.
Well, that was the second time.
Yeah.
The first time you made them, they came out really well. The second time, they came out more like cheese curds.
Yeah, they were little
popcorn
tiny things.
Cheese.
So someone had suggested taking regular mozzarella cheese sticks and dipping them in eggs and then dipping them in pork rinds and then frying them in bacon grease. So that's what I did. They melted. Obviously, they're not like solid, but we'll let you know how they taste because that's what's important. Right?
It doesn't matter what they look like as long as they taste delicioso.
Right.
Oh, they taste amazing.
Do they?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You barely even got it in your mouth.
It tastes like a regular cheese stick. I like that better than I like the other ones that you made.
Well, and people have suggested them because it's cheaper. Because you can get a bag of these cheese sticks for way cheaper than those bags of halloumi. And you can get more because I only made half of them. Pork rinds just make everything better. The barbecue sauce that's on the chicken is the Primal Kitchen Golden Barbecue is what I used. Chicken's falling apart. So I woke up today and I didn't sleep good last night because again, I couldn't breathe out of my nose and my throat was getting scratchy. When I woke up this morning, I wasn't sure how my day was gonna go. I hadn't even decided for sure if I was gonna work today. It just all depended on how I felt, if I felt really awful. I knew I still had to go over and help with my father-in-law regardless because my mother-in-law doesn't have anybody else to come over. But I woke up this morning and I had a dream that our daughter was in high school and we have to take her to school in the morning, and I still had to take care of our father-in-law, which is weird because his accident happened after she graduated. But I woke up and I felt horrible. This is in my dream. And all of a sudden you come walking into the bedroom. You're supposed to be at work. And you're like, I left work for a little while because I knew you didn't feel good. And I came home to take Mary to school and go over and help my mom with dad so you wouldn't have to do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. That's so sweet.
Now, we all know I would do that.
But then I realized it was a dream.
But it was just a dream.
And I actually had to get up and go help. I was like, oh man, I have to get out of bed. So then once I actually got up, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but once I get up and get moving, I actually feel better because everything just kind of breaks loose and you just don't feel as awful as you do when you're laying down in bed at night.
Now, I slept really well. I went to bed a little bit earlier. I fell right to sleep. And with the exception of when you came to bed last night, for the few minutes that I was awake because you were watching your phone, after about 10 minutes of that, I went back to sleep and I slept till my alarm went off. And I hadn't been sleeping well for a while, and that was great. So I actually felt good. I felt rested when I got up. It wasn't until around lunchtime when my throat started to get a little scratchy.
So I did end up going out and working. I worked for maybe about 4 hours today. And the only issue that I really had, because once I got up and got moving, I didn't feel awful. But I don't know if you guys feel like this, but sometimes when you like don't feel well, you just don't feel like you have a lot of strength. I felt weak. if that makes sense. And I've shown you guys before that when we do orders, like especially big shopping orders with BJ's, we have to lift a lot of heavy stuff. And of course, I had a BJ's order today that had a couple cases of, 40 count waters that I had to lift into the cart and then lift in the back of my car and then deliver to their door. By the time I did that, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm wore out. And normally it doesn't bother me, to do that, but I just didn't feel like I had like the energy or the strength to like do it. So that was a little bit of a struggle today. So I just want to remind everybody, tomorrow is the last day that you can order a KetOH-IO t-shirt and have it shipped to your house and get it before the meetup next Saturday, the 25th. You can always still do pickup and you have a few extra days if you want it delivered to you at the KetOH-IO meetup, but if you actually want it shipped to your house, it needs to be ordered by tomorrow. So what'd you have for lunch today?
So last night for dinner we had hamburgers, and I cooked 2 extra hamburgers last night so that I would have them for lunch today. So I took the 2 hamburgers that I had used my Primal Kitchen steak sauce on. I took 2 slices of cheese, and I took a baggy bacon so that I could have bacon cheeseburgers. And I also had a bag of barbecue pork rinds that I ended up not eating. But I did eat 1 hamburger and about 2 bites of the second one, because I also had some turkey breast that I had taken to work a couple days ago and left it in the refrigerator, and I didn't want it to go bad, so I ate that as well. And so probably why I couldn't eat my other burger, but I'll take that other burger tomorrow and
There'll probably be leftover chicken too.
So I'll have both of those tomorrow for lunch.
I had a pretty hefty lunch today. It was sizable for me. Like, normally I'll have a couple hard-boiled eggs and some baggy bacon, and that's about it. But like you, I had some turkey that I wanted to eat because I didn't want the turkey breast to go bad. So I had made my fat coffee. I had a couple turkey roll-ups with cheese. And then I had the 2 hard-boiled eggs, a baggy bacon, and then I had a piece of Chalk Zero candy with, it's like a little dessert at the end. But I was super full. Like, that's a lot of food for me. I don't normally eat that much at lunch. So
I was also very full at lunch. And instead of forcing that other burger down, I just decided to bring it home. After I ate lunch, I was so full that I was wondering if I might even not be hungry at dinner time. But alas, I am.
Before we start talking about the chapter, I wanted to mention that obviously we've been talking about the live stream that we're going to be doing on Saturday at 4 o'clock. And I am using StreamYard to do that live stream. James and Emily are helping us, but I want to use something that Mike and I can recreate at home. If we decide to do another live stream down the road, I want to be able to do it.
Right, without anybody else being around.
Right, and unfortunately, James and Emily are bougie, and they got like fancy live stream equipment and software that I won't have. So if we use their stuff, then I'm going to come home and I'm not going to know what to do. I'm not going to be able to do it. We decided we were going to use StreamYard because we can use that for free, but I couldn't figure it out. I've told you guys a million times how technologically challenged that we are. I am specifically, and I could not figure it out. And I contacted James and Emily. James is like, I don't use StreamYard, so I have no idea. So they couldn't help us. I contacted Chris Bear, and he's like, I don't use StreamYard either. I have no idea how to do it. I'm like, oh my goodness, nobody can help me. I talked to Jackie from Jackie's Jinx Journey. She didn't really understand the issues that I was having, so I was like, oh man, we're in trouble. Like, I don't have anybody to help me. In the end, the person that helped me get it figured out, and I just want to give her a big shout out because I didn't know what I was going to do, but it was Shelly Parker, and that's, as he says, the better half of Hungry Heath.
I would agree with that.
Shelly and Heath do use StreamYard for their live, but they use the paid version, and I am not paying for it. I wanted to use the free version, but Shelly was able to help me, and she was a godsend. I can't even tell you. She was amazing, because I was about ready to give up, because I had tried so many different things, and I just could not get it to work, and Shelly was able to walk me through some things, give me some ideas, and I think we got it figured out. So thank you to Shelly from Hungry Heath. If you are not subscribed to their channel, go check them out. But she was a lifesaver, let me tell you. So with her help, I think we're ready. We had a couple things we had to go buy, some cords and different things like that. So we did that the other day. And we also needed a different tripod because the one that I use won't work while the phone is plugged in. It's just really weird, some weird things. So
it's fantastic that Shelly helped us out, helped you out, gave you some pointers. But I wouldn't go so far as to say we're in and we're ready to roll, because if it can go wrong, it's going to go wrong. So let's
Well, I said that yesterday because
let's keep our fingers crossed that
the whole internet
that
thing is
it,
going to
right,
be...
because that's the one obstacle that we aren't sure about, the one variable that we have no control over, and that is how good the hotel Wi-Fi is going to be for us to actually stream. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, she at least got me to the point where I can actually try it.
Right.
Because
we can turn it on and we can get a picture and sound, but whether it continues
yeah,
and whether it goes uninterrupted, that's a whole different story. Now, the only other thing that we need are viewers. So we can get a few viewers. I mean, we'll be good as gold.
a lot of people have been commenting that they're going to be there, so we're excited about that. One of the things I've been doing since I started not feeling well yesterday was I took an allergy pill, which I believe helped immensely, and it's a 24-hour pill, so I'll make sure I take another one today. But today I really upped my electrolytes. I had electrolytes in my coffee. I put electrolytes in every bottle of water that I drank today, and I have this water. I put a dropper full of KetoChal electrolytes in there, and then also some lemonade Ultima. So I think that upping my electrolytes is just helping, yeah.
I'm having a raspberry lemonade electrolyte beverage for dinner, and I will probably take something tomorrow as well, just to
I think when you're not feeling well or you start not feeling well, that when you up your electrolytes, that really helps. It helped me today, just because otherwise I'd have been dragging on the ground. So we're in the second half of our chapter, and this chapter is about the early bad science, and it just continues to talk about the debate and the argument that went back and forth about whether or not sugar caused diabetes or if it was something else.
You know, it's interesting when we get started on this, the second half of this chapter was really kind of boiled down to like two really high profile doctors and medical professionals.
And it's because of those two people
that we're all screwed up the way we are right now.
That people believed that it wasn't the sugar that was causing diabetes. They believed it was fat or just overeating.
Well, yeah, they explain in here about how it literally only took one person with a good reputation in the medical field, and everybody would buy into everything that person said, and it didn't matter what the truth was or what the studies said or what the information was. If he said one thing, they all jumped on board.
Well, and it actually was two doctors, but what happened was those two doctors just credited
each other.
They just backed each other up, and everyone thought, oh, well, this must be true just because those two doctors say so. It just basically says that in the 19th century, physicians and public health authorities began entertaining the possibility that sugar was responsible for diabetes.
They couldn't deny it because the evidence was there that even if it wasn't directly related, but the increase in sugar consumption was directly related to the increase in diabetes diagnosis. So they couldn't just sweep it under the rug. They had to at least acknowledge that there was something there, but they were so reluctant to really put the two together.
So there's going to be a few names we're going to mention in here. So Elliot Jocelyn, he was among the first in the United States to specialize in diabetes. So he's one of the ones that they talk about a lot in this chapter. But following him was a gentleman named Frederick Allen. And Frederick Allen was one of the people who really believed that the diabetes epidemic and the increase in sugar consumption were related. And in 1913, he published a book, and it included a lengthy discussion on the possibility that diabetes was caused by sugar. The consumption of sugar is undoubtedly increasing, and diabetes is increasing. Its incidence is greatest among the races and the classes of society that consume the most sugar. That is what Allen said. He was convinced that sugar had something to do with it.
Right. And those observations are elementary observations. They are so basic. You don't have to get real high tech or real technical when it comes to this. You just have to put the obvious things together. And that's what he did here.
They also mentioned as evidence that diabetes was suspiciously common among laborers in sugar factories. Like all the people that worked in the sugar factories had diabetes. I wonder if there could be a correlation here.
I mean, that would be like saying when I worked at Coca-Cola, most of the employees at Coca-Cola drank Coca-Cola when they worked at Coca-Cola. Well, yeah, of course, because it's there. It's available.
Yeah, and when you work at Coke, you can drink as much Coke while you're at work, like unlimited amounts, as much as you want.
Right.
You can't take it home, but while you're at work, you can drink as much as you want. So it talks about the different doctors and how they were just debating back and forth about whether or not sugar was the cause of this. And the funny part was that all of the physicians, the ones that said it was sugar and the ones that said it wasn't, virtually all these physicians, however, including these same skeptical authorities, told their diabetic patients not to eat sugar, suggesting that they did indeed think sugar was harmful.
Yeah, so they didn't publicly say it was harmful. They didn't shame it publicly in many cases. Some of them did. But they all told their patients privately, hey, you got diabetes? Stop eating sugar.
Don't eat sugar.
I mean, come on. We can close the book right now. Because that's what it is. I mean, we know the truth. They knew the truth. But there are so many other things that are connected to the sugar industry that there's just no way. I'm sure they were approached and some things were said or, provisions made so that they would not badmouth sugar publicly. Because, I mean, you're talking about a supply and demand that was, on the upswing and everybody was going to want it. And if you were to come in and badmouth it, you'd probably never practice medicine again.
Right. Allen also said that diabetes was prevalent among the lazy and the indolent rich. In particular, their daily sustenance and what they ate chiefly was rice, flour, and sugar. So he says without a shadow of a doubt, it was more prevalent and it increased in the wealthy. And the number of diabetic cases was growing in the well-to-do class.
It's interesting because we read earlier about how during the Great Depression and when sugar prices were really low and, they were just churning out all kinds of products and candies and all kinds of things that were sugar-laced, and people were poor and couldn't afford to buy things that they needed, food that they needed that were sustainable, they were eating the candy and the sugar stuff. Now we're seeing it on the flip side, where you have the rich, the well-to-do, and because of that, they're only eating, high carb, high sugar foods.
Well, you got to figure the poor can't, even though they were eating it and spending their money on it, they can't eat nearly as much as like the wealthy can.
Right. It just goes to show you that the sugar industry and the effects of sugar as a whole, they don't know any economic boundaries. There's no social class for them because everything has sugar in it. So it didn't matter if you were on the poor side or on the wealthy side. It was available and you were going to eat it.
The funny thing about that is that they found that the people who suffered from diabetes were the ones who overindulged in rice, flour, and sugar. And at that time, we didn't even have organic chemistry, and they didn't even know that sugar, rice, and flour were all carbohydrates. They just found that the people who were eating those things had a higher risk of diabetes.
They knew simply based on urine samples that they were higher in sugar. They just didn't tie the two together. They didn't tie those food items, that they were carbs. They didn't know that. They just knew that those people, like you said, had diabetes and they had higher concentration of sugar in their urine.
So as Mike said before, the gentleman by the name of Jocelyn, he just became the go-to guy. He was the one that they just relied on for all of their information about diabetes. Wasn't he just a physician?
I don't remember.
A regular physician. Yeah. But he ends up publishing a diabetic book, and it gets rewritten and republished like 9 times.
Yeah, and that was like the gold standard too. His books, when they came out, that's what everybody went by. It was like the Bible as far as sugar goes.
And they actually called it that. It says, with Jocelyn arguing in edition after edition of his textbook that sugar was not the cause of diabetes, the entire field would eventually accept this as truth.
Yeah.
Jocelyn believed that sugar was a valuable item in the diet and thus unlikely to be the cause of chronic disease.
So because you like it and you don't want it to be the cause, you just say it's not the cause. Because he believed it was valuable, not because it was actually valuable. There was no scientific research, no evidence to back that statement up. So because he says it, sugar can't be the cause.
And a lot of what he said, they found out was misinformation. Because you got to remember, this is like the 1920s. Mm-hmm. How far has our science and our studies come since then that people are still believing what he said?
But they still do, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
A lot of what they did, him and the other guy did during this time period, we still do today. It's ridiculous to imagine that 100 years has gone by and we're still following the same principles and the same guidelines and some of the same theories.
Yeah.
I mean, we have so much more technology and medical research and information, and yet we're still buying into that.
So he basically blamed diabetes on two things. He had blamed it on obesity. He believed that if you didn't get fat in the first place, is what he says, because you ate too much and moved too little, that you wouldn't develop diabetes.
You know, that's funny because blaming obesity because you don't do anything. Now, don't get me wrong. Physical activity is important. We're doing our movement march for that reason. But that's not the only reason. That's not the only thing that contributes to obesity. And to think that what you eat has nothing to do with it is ridiculous.
Well, it wasn't just what you eat doesn't have anything to do with it. He believed that fat made you fat.
Well, right.
So,
and he also said that if you ate too much, but again, that is such a vague statement because it's not, I mean, it is how much you eat. Yes, that's a part of the equation. But again, it's what you eat.
Right. So that was the second thing. The first one was obesity and being fat caused you to have diabetes. A diet rich in fat was the second thing that contributed to it.
And that's where that lie started that has gone on unchanged for the last 80 to 100 years.
I mean, we did beef, butter, bacon, and eggs in January, and we ate fat. We ate meat, and we ate fat. That was like what our whole diet consisted of, and we both lost weight.
Not only did we lose weight, but it's March, and I felt better in January than I do February and March combined so far.
So we know, just from firsthand experience, that fat doesn't make you fat.
No.
And most of you probably feel the same way
I had more energy. I slept better. I felt better, had minimal aches and pains. Everything was better. And again, I would have never believed that if you just told me that. But now that I've experienced it, I know that what we're reading in here, the early bad science, was indeed bad because it's clearly not true.
So what they were saying, though, is that the research, whatever research they came up with, that fat was bad, exonerated sugar. It totally took sugar off the hook. So it's fat because Jocelyn said it was fat. Now we're just going to totally ignore the fact that sugar could have anything to do with it.
Right.
It took sugar off the radar. One of his examples of why he didn't believe,
I think it was the only example.
Yeah.
He kept going back to it every single time. It was like that's the only thing he had.
That it wasn't sugar and it wasn't the flour and the grains that was making people fat, was the Japanese, because that's a lot of what their diet consisted of. But at that time, diabetes was very rare among the Japanese people. So he kept saying, if this is the case, then why do the Japanese not have diabetes? But that information was flawed.
The most logical question that would have been at that time for this particular research would have been, how much sugar are the Japanese consuming?
Right.
They didn't even ask that question. Didn't even look into it.
Right. And if they had, they would have found that the Japanese were consuming less sugar than the Americans or the British. They were consuming about what the Americans had been consuming a century earlier, when diabetes was virtually unknown even in the United States. So the other researcher that came along was Harold Hemsworth, and he and Jocelyn basically in tandem worked together to exonerate sugar. They just cited each other's work back and forth to make their case for, why it wasn't sugar and that it was the fat that was making people fat. But then even Hemsworth, he came up with something that showed that there was a problem in their philosophy. And that was, they were doing testing on animals. And in that testing, they were giving the animals more fat, basically trying to induce diabetes. And the more fat that laboratory animals consumed to replace the carbohydrates, the harder it was to make them diabetic.
Wow, imagine that.
So he found a flaw in his own theory.
I'm sure he didn't produce those studies and all that information so that, the medical world could feast on that.
So Jocelyn was in the US and Hemsworth, who's the one who was testing the animals, was in the UK. And again, with the two of them working back and forth, the statement that sugar was not to blame and that fat was just became undisputed truth. And again, the books that were written by Jocelyn were taken as like basically a diabetic Bible. If you read it, it was true. And the last time that Jocelyn's book was updated was in 1971, and we're still following this advice. I see a major problem with that.
I think it's time to hang it up. I think it's time to put his books on the shelf and move on.
Again, a lot of the information that was in his books has already been misproven. So why are we still believing that fat is the guilty party here.
You know, interestingly enough, too, about this is, they talked about the obesity being the cause. But again, what caused obesity? We go back to that. As the years wore on, it became, I want to say, more and more evident because doctors started coming around a little bit saying, hey, look, obesity is directly related to sugar consumption. And so then you just keep going down the line. And I think maybe Hemsworth's little discovery about fat and not being able to induce diabetes, I think might have started that change. It was a slow one, clearly, because they're still struggling with it. But I feel like that was kind of like the turning point because he was well known and well respected, and I think that now other doctors were starting to follow suit. I mean, you're fighting an uphill battle at this point, so it'll be interesting to see as the book goes on, how this goes and what other bits of information come to light, because clearly I feel like the argument is starting to show some cracks.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
On Thursday, we are going to start chapter 6. I haven't looked at it to see how long the chapter itself is. And it looks like that puts us right about halfway through the book. So we'll be about halfway done at that point. Yeah, so there's 11 chapters in the book and the epilogue. So I'm going to say after chapter 6, we're halfway.
We'll be halfway, yeah.
So that's it for tonight, guys. And it looks, the next couple chapters, the titles are very intriguing. The Gift That Keeps on Giving and Big Sugar.
Yeah, I wonder what that means.
Yeah, so...
But we're not going to tell you now. You're going to have to come back later.
We will see you guys in our next video on Thursday.
Dinner was fantastic. The book was fantasticer. And now we're going to go...
Fantastical.
I'm going to go lay on the couch while she edits. Ha ha ha!
If you guys like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell notification button. That way, every time we upload a new video, you'll be alerted to it. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Actually, Friday is when you'll see the video.
Right.
So,
Yep. Good night.
Night.